claimed, and part of the evidence is the Mandam tribe of Native Americans, who are said to include blonde-haired and blue-eyed members at the time of contact. Even Lewis and Clark expedition and famous Sacagawea, his wife that he married, that had blue eyes. So a lot of people think that that is the remnant of the Swedish party intermingling with the natives of that region in the Mandan village on the Missouri River in what is now Bismarck, North Dakota. So it may be true. We do see an unusual interest in another area valued by the Linnaean Society of London in St. Louis, Missouri. They constructed a park and later Missouri Botanical Gardens that seems to have been created by the Linnaean Society, and the Lewis and Clark party left from St. Louis, and as well as the Astor party up the Missouri River in this direction, and possibly one of the reasons for this route of exploration beyond looking for the, quote, Northwest Passage would be to find more evidence of claim markers or ownership. I mean, the United States did end up with this territory that was claimed by this Axis Mundi, at least the southern portion of it. So maybe these kinds of claims are valued or honored at some level that we don't understand. Maybe there's a group of people who decides who gets ownership based on the history. And it also obviously involves the quest for the Holy Grail. The Pillow Stone of Jacob is considered one of the items that may be the original Holy Grail. So there would have been a huge interest in this, and really, even if the stone wasn't real, the fact that everybody valued and quested for it so much, regardless of its authenticity, is notable and interesting. So there you go, a short segment today about the Verendre runestone and how it may relate to the Kensington runestone. There's something going on with the International Peace Guard in relation to all the Swedish Templar lore in that region of the country, including the Mandan village and the legend of Prince Madoc and all of that. So everybody look into that too. Have a great night, and thanks for joining me here on Geomantic Information Systems. It's always a lot of fun to bring you this information, an alternate view. If you disagree, I understand totally. This is just my thoughts on what could be possible given the facts and some knowledge of occult symbols and scientific values. So to me, it was kind of amazing to not toot my own horn, but I ended up coming to very similar conclusions to Buff Perry. Even though I hadn't been exposed to his work, I was amazed to find it. The movie The Secret Codes of the Illuminati on the UFO TV network on YouTube started me looking at that, and I was amazed that he had found that even the same people involved that I had seen in other instances related to the Peace Garden. In two of these other geomantic sites, there's definite suggestions of Jefferson and Humboldt's involvement that both align with the Peace Garden just like the runestones do. So this is a pretty amazing stuff here. And as I said, thanks for joining me, and please come back soon. I appreciate everything. Have a great evening. Bye.
And also shown in this book. Now, in my other videos and books and blog articles and Facebook and all of that, I pretty much discuss and point out the passages from the Loeb Library and other sources that these red-haired people that had the gigantism characteristics they were abusive to the average-sized human. And, it often involved cannibalism or human sacrifice or something just disgusting. But other factions of their people didn't like that and hunted them down and exterminated their genetic line, so to say, so that they couldn't carry on. And that came from Zeus and his children. They got rid of the oppressive red-haired giants and spread their bloodline through many of the Europeans and probably some of the Asians, specifically probably the Japanese royal house as well. And their offspring became the rulers and the leaders around the world. Now, I want to point out that there is some writing in Diodorus Siculus about Atlantis, and it's also described in the Bible. So let me read these passages to wrap up this video and explain to you that one massive cover-up has just happened on this planet and has to be undone. So let me read this. Okay, from Diodorus Siculus's Library of History, he states, "For there lies out in the deep off Libya an island of considerable size, and situated as it is in the ocean. It is distant from Libya, a voyage of a number of days to the west. Its land is fruitful, much of it being mountainous, and not a little being a level plain of surpassing beauty. Through it flows navigable rivers which are used for irrigation, and the island contains many parks planted with trees of every variety and gardens in great multitudes, which are traversed by streams of sweet water. On it also are private villas of costly construction, and throughout the gardens banqueting houses have been constructed in a settling of flowers, and in them the inhabitants pass their time during the summer season, since the land supplies in abundance everything which contributes to enjoyment and luxury. And speaking generally, the climate of this island is so altogether mild that it produces in abundance the fruits of the trees and the other seasonal fruits for the larger part of the year, so that it would appear that the island, because of its exceptional felicity, were a dwelling place of a race of gods and not of men." And okay, so that was from Diodorus Siculus's Library of History. I do not believe that that's America. He said it was off the coast, or he said out in the deep off Libya. So, this has to be Atlantis. And he says it's an island of considerable size, situated in the ocean, and it is a distant from Libya, a voyage of a number of days to the west. So Plato wasn't the only one that talked about Atlantis. Diodorus Siculus described it perfectly. And I know there's the Guanchos in the Canary Islands, but I don't recall any kind of description as such. And this was described as a large island, so with a lot of mountains. And I just don't think that would be the Canary Islands. Okay, so let me tell you what the Bible says. Okay, in Ezekiel 28:14, that was Ezekiel 26:15 through 19. Okay, Tyre exists today. It's off the coast of modern-day Israel. So this has to be about ancient Tyre, and that is Atlantis. So ancient Tyre would be the biblical name for Atlantis. And lastly, I want to read one more passage. Okay, this one's from Ezekiel 28:16 through 19. In the abundance of your trade, you were filled with violence and you sinned. So I cast you as a profane thing, and the guardian cherub drove you out from among the stones of fire. Your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. I cast you to the ground. I exposed you before kings. By the multitude of your iniquities, in the righteousness of your trade, you profaned your sanctuaries. So I brought out fire from within you. It consumed you, and I turned you to ashes on the earth. In the sight of all who saw you, all who know you among the peoples are appalled at you. You have come to a dreadful end and shall be no more forever. Ezekiel 28:16-19. Now that's a description of the volcanic eruption that ripped through Atlantis the first time, and that's also showed in one of these Aztec codices. Okay, and to show you that Abrahamic religion is a complete plagiarism of Greek mythology, which is based on people that really lived and were survivors of Atlantis. I'm going to read this from my Bible from Psalm 82, 1 through 4. Listen to this carefully. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice to the weak and the orphan. Maintain the right of the lowly and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. Psalm 82, 1 through 4. Okay, if there's only one God, he certainly isn't going to take his place in the midst of the gods. Okay, so someone didn't plagiarize Greek mythology very well. I've already shown you that Jehovah is Zeus. He's the part of the Jewish cult of Jupiter Sabazius. Satan is Prometheus. Iapetus, the brother of Cronus, was one of the leaders of the Watchers, the fallen angels. I've already shown you that in previous videos. So these people traveled the world. They had trade all over the place. They created kingdoms that came and went, and city-states that came and went. Some of them had genetics for gigantism and acromegalia, and they became the leaders. I believe that this artificial cranial deformation is to mimic and imitate those that have acromegalia and gigantism, and to mimic the headgear of the pharaoh. And the genetics for this gigantism couldn't be kept because, once they began to breed out and increase, those genetics didn't show up as well. And those that were pretty evil and had those genetics and the physical strength were exterminated by Zeus and his family. So these red-haired people traveled all over the place. Tyre is where they escaped to, the modern Tyre. Their Atlantis was called Old Tyre in the Bible. And they started up again. They spread out through the Mediterranean, North Africa, Europe, the Middle East, India. They were in India. The Dionysica shows you that. Dionysus was in India. And all over China, Russia, Siberia. They probably crossed over. They had ships. They went into the Americas, all over the Americas, Mexico and South America. And like I said, there were different time periods for their travels and migrations, and their city-states have come and gone. And I believe those in the secret societies and in power, they know this, or know it to some degree. I've already shown that Helen Blavatsky and Albert Pike were Freemasons, knew very well about Dionysus Osiris. They knew it was the same person. Helen Blavatsky knew about Zagreus, and they even know the estimated time of death, the time period when Dionysus Osiris was murdered. So we have a mass cover-up, and they do it to control the populace and to live like kings and queens and get away with their crimes. And religion was created to control the masses. That is my presentation on Red-Haired Giants Exposed.